Welcome to the Real Estate 401k Show. Here are your hosts, Ryan Gertis, Mike Weinstein, and Justin Frederick, helping you build a legacy of wealth through real estate. Powered by the Recon Group at West USA and the Frederick team with Fairway Mortgage. NMLS number 625918.
All right, boys, I think one of the misconceptions that I find out there, and it's not always the case, but who pays the real estate agent? And oftentimes, or I'm not going to say oftentimes, in most cases, the seller in the state of Arizona pays the real estate agent commissions, and they pay for their own agent, the listing agent, and then in almost every single scenario, and not all scenarios, but in most scenarios, when we represent a buyer, we help somebody buy a home, the seller is the one that is paying us. But people get caught up in money, and people, one, are confused on who's paying who, or two, they've stopped with the HGTV. Okay, that does not make you a real estate expert, and they want to take matters into their own hands. And we had a buyer, it was about 2 years ago, and we'd been working with, and they just decided they didn't listen to us, Ryan. They decided to just waltz on into an open house, not let that agent know that they were working with us. So maybe we failed partially with the communication.
You never know what fully sinks in. You know, you can plant seeds, water them, fertilize them, give them all the sun and perfect growing environment for that education to sink in and information to sink in. And some people just don't want to have it, and it's fine. But at the end of the day, it hurts them.
It does. So they walk into an open house. The agent holding the open house was also the listing agent. So next thing you know, they are now in a contract to buy this house. The listing agent is representing the seller. The buyer, unaware, basically signed an unrepresented, buyer form. Now they have no representation. And then the calls started coming in with, they got taken advantage of here, and they didn't understand this and didn't understand this. And at the end of the day, they overpaid. They did not get any concessions when it came down to inspection because they thought they could do it themselves.
So one of the first things that you said, I want to put a little bit of clarity there when it comes to who's paying who. A buyer's agent never sits down with the seller and negotiates commission.
True.
Right? So these listing agreements, they're not contracts or service agreements. And the only time that they're payable is when these things close. So I bring all this up because when they're putting together that negotiation between seller and listing agent, it is on there, and it's important for you guys to know this, that if you're ever selling a home, under the cooperating broker side, it will indicate how much the listing agent, not the seller, the listing agent is going to be paying the buying broker. So, chain of events, seller, listing agent, right? Seller's paying the listing agent's then paying the buying agent. It's not the seller paying the buying agent. It's the listing agent paying the buyer. So I say all this because if you have a listing agent that is not putting together compensation that is attractive enough for a buyer's agent to bring clients to, and I know that people are going to get angry
at that, right?
You know what I mean? Because no price fixing this and that. But guess what? I have a discussion with my buyers, and I let them know that I have a minimum fee whenever it comes time to closing, and that if I'm showing them a property that's available on MLS or whatever search engine that person's using, then I might need it to be supplemented because maybe the listing agent, not the seller, the listing agent is not offering enough compensation. So I say all of this because when you are a buyer and you're walking into an open house or you're having a discussion with an agent that you are getting consultation from, you need to have these conversations because you don't know what you don't know. And every single time that you walk into a different home, it's a different agreement. It's a different contract between listing agent and seller.
Now, Justin, you see this all the time as the loan officer where you're working with buyers and you're obviously getting them qualified for a mortgage. You're bringing the finance piece to it. They're buyers. They're not working with agents. What are some of the pitfalls and what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing these buyers make? Because oftentimes you're having to kind of serve as a real estate agent
in a lot of
counselor,
cases.
yeah.
In a lot of cases, and the common theme that I see is again, you said it. The buyers feel like they are being represented, but in reality, you can see the clear distinction of where that the listing agent's loyalty lies, and who's paying that listing agent, right? So you can definitely see where that loyalty lies. You definitely see. I've seen buyers in these cases overpay for properties. I've seen the appraisal come in low. There's no negotiation. They're not represented, and they're paying extra out of their pocket for a property that's really not worth overpaying for in a lot of these cases. But they're talked into it. Concessions. You're seeing inspections that are not really looked at well, because how often as a buyer do you buy a house? Typically, it's not every day that you buy a house, so you really are just getting flooded with all these documentation by the lender, by the realtor, by the inspector, by the title company, and you have this short period of time to filter through all these legal documentation and trying to figure out what you're doing. It highly recommend making sure that you're represented.
And then Ryan, it's who is representing you. I find real estate fascinating. You would be amazed. The average person would be amazed on what little goes into getting a real estate license. 90 hours of class here in the state of Arizona, pass a couple tests, get a background check, fingerprint card, pay some money, and now I can control through my decisions. I can impact your retirement account, your nest egg, your kids' college education, and the consumer doesn't know my experience level, doesn't know whether I'm full-time or part-time.
They're not going to the Department of Real Estate.
Yeah, it blows me away on how easy it is to get a real estate license here in the state of Arizona. So with that, I feel like when you buy a home without representation, what you're giving up is the power of negotiation. That is what I think the overriding value that we bring to the table. It's if you don't know how to negotiate the purchase of a home, you might be overpaying. You don't know how to, you may not even know that you have the right to a 10-day inspection period. And if that 10-day inspection period comes and goes, you forfeit your right to an inspection and probably forfeit your earnest money in the event that you don't fulfill, the contract. You don't know how to negotiate repairs. And then you brought up documents. Okay, when you are a buyer and the title company sends you the CC&Rs and all the HOA documents and all the title reports, you've got to know what it's
a different language.
It's
a different language.
And you got to know that's what you leave on the table.
So I want to ask you guys a question. As I'm not a real estate wealth manager, or I don't even claim to be. How much did you learn in those 90 hours about negotiations? Nothing. Okay. So how did you learn that?
Oh, you know what? Honestly, I did start in college. I did a lot of sales when I was in college, and I actually a little bit in high school. And here's what the deal is like. So, but we're going over to this negotiation side, because you're not just negotiating with the other side. You're also negotiating with your own client, because they need to understand what they're signing, and they need to understand what they can and can't do in order to find those pressure points, because ultimately we're intermediaries here, right? Like we're making sure that everybody that comes to the table is equal, right? And so when it comes to that negotiation, making sure that they're not asking too much to where it breaks the camel's back is really part of it. And so the reason why people that have only have their license for a day or two can do well in this industry is because they know those pressure points of people, and they know how to get people to like and trust them.
So let's say, okay, keep going. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Well, no, I mean that's kind of where it all starts as far as the negotiation element. If I'm sitting on the other side of the table from you and you're an asshole, then guess what? I'm pulling hard stops on you all the time.
So let's say I've been I'm just throwing this out there. Let's say I've been a police officer, Mike, for I don't know, 15 years, and I'm a negotiator, right? And I learned all this stuff, and don't you think that I could be a good negotiator on my own?
No, because I consider myself an expert negotiator when it comes down to real estate transactions. Doesn't mean I'm going to make a good cop and I'm going to be able to negotiate anything with the law. I mean, every industry has got its own intricacies.
How many transactions have you done as a realtor?
Oh, about 3.
No, for real, for our listeners.
I
how
really,
many?
I really.
If you were to throw a number out there,
my
throw a number.
Gosh.
Because I would like to guess.
I guess.
I bet you like 500 or more.
No, I would say way over 1,000.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big number.
And to your point, how I learned is one, when I did get my license, and I mean, truth be told, there's some things I didn't know what I was doing.
Sure. Back in the day.
But I had a team.
Yeah.
And I had a mentor and a coach behind me, and I had a broker behind me, and I leaned on them heavily. But I would also say this: I'm 2002 so I'm just over 20 years into it, and I'm still learning, man.
So my point is basically, guys, even if you were a negotiator for 15 years, I bet you your first negotiation wasn't the best because you didn't know that.
I remember my first one, and Ryan, you're going to love this. Okay, my very first transaction I ever did was a lease purchase.
Wow.
Okay, so
Damn.
That's a tough one.
So
You didn't even jump in the kiddie pool. You jumped into the deep abyss of the ocean.
So they tell you in
Were you
our
desperate?
business, no, I just was creative.
Okay.
Okay, that was just my speak.
Yeah.
I was always, investors are always attracted to me, and I love the creative side of real estate. And we're always taught as real estate agents that when you are sitting across the table from a client, you should be, and you got the contract in front of them, because we didn't have all this email stuff back then,
DocuSign.
right? DocuSign.
Yeah, triple
And
carbon copy.
So when I'm sitting across from you, I'm looking at the contract upside down because it's right side up for you. And you're ready to go when you can explain the contract, reading it upside down and go section by section. Well, now I got a lease purchase. This thing is, I don't even understand the purchase contract, much less the lease purchase. And I just think back of just the BS that probably came out of my mouth. But we got through it. And this is a true story. We got through it. They put X amount of dollars down. They got into this house in Fountain Hills on a lease purchase, but I didn't understand the intricacies of the lease purchase. So my client says, hey, got this hot tub here, Mike. You interested in buying the hot tub from me? Well, in a lease purchase, you don't actually quite own the house yet.
No.
So I paid them X amount of dollars. I paid this company $500 to pick up the hot tub, drive it to my house in Litchfield Park. And about 2 weeks later, cops come to my door and said, it's been reported that you have stolen a hot tub. Because during that time, it may have been more than 2 weeks, during that time, my client bailed on the house. The house goes back to the original owner, and he wants to know where his hot tub was.
You stole a hot tub.
Well, I didn't. Okay, that's my
Stole
point.
the
I
show.
didn't knowingly steal the hot tub. So I called my broker, Todd Menard, and I go, dude, this is my first conversation I got with my designated broker. I go, yeah, this is what's happening. He goes, yeah, you're returning that thing. So I had to invest another $500. It's the truth. That was
just to let everybody know, like a lease to own contract is extremely complicated. There's a lot that goes into it, and keep in mind that it always leans towards the investor side. Whoever has the money, they get the benefit of
Ryan,
everything.
fair or not, the statement that if you buy a home without real estate professional representation, you're likely to pay more money for the house and get less concessions and make more mistakes.
So, National Association of Realtors did come up with. They did a survey, and they did go out and do some data seeking on this. And if you are selling it by yourself, or if you are unrepresented buyer, then you're paying about 12%.
12%.
You're giving up 12%.
Yeah, you're giving up 12%.
That's a lot.
That's
so,
a huge
So if
number.
you are unrepresented and you're walking into a scenario where they are represented, you're in about a 12% upside down position. If you're listing your home FSBO, you're usually selling it for about 12% under what market value is.
All right, well, there you have it. No matter where you're at in the buying process, whether you're a first-time home buyer, second-time home buyer, whether you're an investor, we want to have a chat with you. We want to show you the pitfalls and the mistakes that might cost you money if you go in unrepresented. Whether we represent you or not, we just want to help you avoid making these mistakes. We'd love to have a free consultation with you. All you got to do is text the word buyer to 623-AZ-RECON. That's buyer to 623-AZ-RECON.
Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate 401k Show. If you want more information on how to build wealth, click on the link or text us at 623-297-3266. That's 623-AZ-RECON.